Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. We've got Battlefield news to talk about. We have a huge update to the game that came out as we were recording this yesterday, or April 19th, and I'm very pumped to get started, so let's jump right in. This podcast is a production of Uplink Media Group. Uplink is a podcast network dedicated to highlighting the love and experience of gaming and pop culture. Check out our other show, Star Wars Uplink and The Forge, the Halo Infinite podcast, as well as our YouTube channels for even deeper dives into Battlefield, Star Wars, and more. YouTube.com/Uplink Podcast and StarWarsUplink.com. The stars have opened, and we finally got a big update that, again, right off the bat, this is how the game should have launched instead of how it did launch. But thankfully, they have put in a crap ton of work to get a bunch of updates into the game. What did they say? It was like 400 or something insane like that.
Yeah, there was. I think they mentioned 400, and I actually just saw this morning before we started recording that someone on Twitter compiled another 70 that were like ghost changes. They didn't even mention them in the patch notes.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder how many there actually is. There could be closer to 500, which is, it's weird that they don't put that in there, but I don't know. I guess they didn't deem them important enough, even though, to be honest, some of them were bigger than the changes that they mentioned. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, definitely a lot of good changes. And I was very nervous about this, like, landing. I kind of thought, it's all big and exciting, but how's it going to work out? And it seems like it's actually landed really well.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people in the community even a lot of people who are generally seen as the more negative or critical, creators or players, and they're actually also really excited about this update. So it seems like it's landed really well. And yeah, hopefully they can just continue to build upon it, which, I was a bit nervous about this one, but if they've landed an update of this size and it's gone, seemingly well, then I'm sure that the next updates can do the same. So yeah, finally a bit of excitement, which is which is good to see.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of a little depressing that we're getting excited about bug fixes, but that's the state Battlefield 2042 is in. Alongside those bug fixes, we also got voice over IP, which again should have been in the game at launch. A change to the end of round screen that displays the scoreboard, and an overhaul of the weapon attachments, and then a bunch of other changes. I will say, as I was humping in earlier today, I think it's hilarious the half-hearted addition of the scoreboard they added to the end screen. Like, it's not even there. You have to hold down to bring it up afterwards. Like, it goes through that end screen section where it gives you all the stats, and then it's like, oh, up in the top there's a little thing that says scoreboard. You press that, and then it pulls it up. I would love if
they would just delete the quips at the end and put it there instead.
Exactly.
That would be perfect. Maybe they should make it when you hold that button, it mutes the background and you can just see the scoreboard and no one's talking. That would be ideal.
That'd be great. But they're like, fine, we'll add it, but we won't actually show it unless you actually make it there, which it's fine, I guess. But
it's a weird decision, but I think because of how long the end of round just takes too long, in my opinion. There's so much stuff they got to go through. All of the
much.
Show the top players, then they've got your XP gain and all that. So I think, even though it is a weird decision, and I just wish they would just either delete the top players thing or make it shorter or whatever. I also think it probably actually works for the current state, just because otherwise it'd be adding an extra 20 seconds and you've just got too much time between games. So it's weird, but yeah, I think ideally they just replace the stuff that we don't want with it, and hopefully, they are talking about the specialists soon in the next feedback loop, so hopefully the tone side of things is what they're talking about, and hopefully that can make its way in.
when they first announced that they were going to add the scoreboard to the end of round screen, I thought they were going to do it like how Battlefront does, where they have the different tab that you can go to, where it's it's a big feature instead of how it is here, where it's almost hidden to the point. Like I'd read all of the patch notes before I jumped into the game, so I just could keep track of what I needed to take notice of. And when I got to the end of round screen, I was like, oh wait, where's the scoreboard? Oh, there it is. Wait, I have to pull it up? Okay, there. Okay, yep. Okay. that was basically the interaction that I had with the game. Okay, there it is.
It was the same for me, actually. I was kind of sitting there, like, excited, like, oh, when's it gonna pop up? And it just didn't. And then I saw it actually says, like, press start or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, that's how they've done it. So it clicked eventually, but
yeah,
I was kind of sitting there just like, not that I was actually I couldn't care less about the scoreboard, but
yeah, who cares?
I was very closely paying attention. I was like, oh, I wonder how it's going to look and all that kind of thing, and it just didn't happen, and I was just like, what's going on here? And then eventually it clicked, but like I said, it's a weird design choice, but I mean, it's hardly the biggest issue that the game has, so at least it's there now. They can maybe fix it eventually, but I think we've got some other stuff to fix up.
I know in terms of like some of the experiences that you've had with the game and lobbies and lag being in Australia, but did you notice anything excessive on your end?
I had one game, which is really weird because like I've never had a rubber banding issue prior to this, even though a lot of people have, but I had one game on, I think, Hourglass, where there was maybe like a 3-minute section where it was just pretty much unplayable, and I was just about to quit, and then it just like fixed itself. That could also have just been my internet. I've been having massive internet trouble, so it could have just been on my end. I actually don't know, but yeah, it just feels more optimized. I didn't really think it would on console. I knew it would on PC, but it just feels a bit more like the game feels more responsive and a bit snappier, I guess. So, in terms of like the overall feeling, it definitely feels a bit better. But yeah, there was also a little bit of the rubber banding, which hopefully that was just on my end, but I guess we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, for me, I played 4 or 5 different games, and all of them I had the inconsistent connection to the server error in the left-hand corner, and I never had that happen before. I don't know if it's just a lot of people are being on there, but like I was lagging all over the place.
That's weird.
So that was something I definitely noticed. Is like, okay, but I did get into a game much quicker than I have ever gotten into a game, even at launch. So that's also surprising. Like launch was
I think a lot of people have come back. Like weirdly enough, I didn't think this update would be enough to, and I don't think a lot of people will stick around until season 1. But I downloaded the update and it was like 6 p.m. for us in Australia. So I thought I don't know if that many people will download it and play it that night. So I was kind of skeptical, and I was finding games straight away that were full, multiple different lobbies and stuff. So it does seem like people are actually, I think people are just itching for this game to be good, and they just kind of want to test it out each time there's an update, because as much as we've all got criticism about the game and there is a lot of negativity, I think people just want it to be good. So I think people will keep coming back every update and just see how it goes. I don't think this is really enough to keep people sticking around, because there's still just so much, like there needs to be more content, and just like the specialists and the maps are still just not where they should be. But it is still just good to see people coming back and trying it out, and from what I've seen on Twitter, like everyone's happy. I haven't really seen anyone say anything negative, so it's a step in the right direction, which is all we can ask for at this point, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I will say it seems like there's been a shift online around Battlefield 2042. Obviously, I think too people are just kind of sick of crapping on it. Like, we've all gotten it out of our systems. I still think, like many others in the community, I think Westy put it very well, as this is how the game should have launched, and it's ridiculous to have the game be in the state that it currently is in and us being rejoicing for it after 6 months of the game being out, be like, okay, now it's in a good state. Like, it just shows that they needed that extra time to actually say, hey, let's get to the place that we need to go. Like, this is where it should have launched as. Now that they've got it here, the next thing they need to get as quickly as humanly possible is new content. Because we should have been getting new content pretty regularly now. But I think the next priority is that new content to bring people in. I think this is good for fans that wanted this game to succeed. Now, to bring the broader community back and the bigger player base, you need to have that content. Because, like you said, I think we're going to see a surge of people, and then it's going to drop until we get that content.
Yeah, I think the way I see this update was this is like sort of a foundational update. This needs to be a solid foundation of like the game's been a mess. This is now, I think the game now is in a playable state. It was not I wouldn't say it was not playable, but it was not acceptable. I think it was just, there was so much wrong. And while there still is a lot wrong, I think the game now is stable enough. I guess we'll find out over the next few weeks, because like I've only played for, I don't know, 3 hours. Like if we play more and more, we might find new bugs and stuff. So it's hard to say, but just from early impressions, it feels like the game is now pretty much at that launch state where it's like enough. And now I think the May update needs to double down on that. I think that needs to, any more loose ends that there are need to be tied up in May, and then hopefully June. Like June is technically the start of summer. They didn't say the month, so we just don't. It could be August. Like we just don't know yet. And I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, because summer could just mean any time. But I think if the May update kind of doubles down on this one, and then we get content in June, then I think we'll be very much on the right track. If we don't get content until July and August, that's going to be, I don't know. I still think the game will turn around with content, but it's just how long can they keep dragging it out? Now, if they do a May and June and July update that they're all really, really good and it's just continually getting better without content, then that's fine. Do whatever. But like you, I think that we just need like a couple new weapons, a new specialist, a new map to actually go, oh, I really want to try that out. It looks fun. Right now, there is nothing to try out. We were simply downloading this update to try the gameplay. There's no specific thing that we wanted to try. So definitely agree with that. It's a great step, and I think I don't. We're not going to get anything in May other than just more of this. But I think May needs to be. They can't go backwards in May. They can't do an update and it introduces more bugs. We cannot have that. We need to have, even if it's a smaller update, just fix the little loose ends up. It doesn't need to be perfect by then, but just keep doing what they've done, and then hopefully from there, it's in a spot that it can actually turn around and do pretty well once we actually get content.
Yep, this is the new baseline, and if they go underneath that baseline, it is not good. Like this is bare minimum. If anything happens to bring it down, you're stepping backwards. They haven't gotten that level where they have excess of goodwill. Yeah. They need to build up that foundation. They need to build up the walls, the houses, the windows, everything. They need to start getting that meat on the bone of this game. And honestly, I think if they had plans to release a big map, I hope those changes have been those plans have changed, because I think as they found out, bigger does not always mean better, and it's all about what you do with it, man. So I would rather them to work on 2 smaller maps than one big one. And was it Temporal said that they have removed references to the one map that they had that we had kind of known about in this version of the game. So hopefully that means good news.
Yeah, well, obviously it was just concept art, so it's just impossible to tell. But that map did look still incredibly open. There was like 2 buildings, and it was just like a plain. It was kind of, it looked like it looked nice, but it didn't look fun to play on, I guess. So I do hope that and I think they would have. I think they would have seen our feedback. You know, they've obviously seen it with Kaleidoscope and stuff, and I think they would have internally gone, all right, what we were thinking for maps, it doesn't work. We need to sort of downsize and make them. I really hope they make them more infantry based. You can still have vehicles, but just make them. I want to fight in a little city. I want to fight in close quarters. I don't want to be trying to take on a sniper with an assault rifle because I'm, you know, he's 500 meters away and that's the next piece of cover. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I really do. Yeah, I hope they've internally realised that, and I think they would have. Whether that can change their plans for the first map, I'm not sure. I think it might be questionable for the first map, but I think like if we're going to get say 4 maps, then I do think the second, third, and fourth will probably be smaller, just because they kind of know our feelings now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the first one goes.
I mean, because they're actively working on making the older maps better. They've heard our feedback. They're starting to implement changes. We talked about that last episode, but what sense does it make for them to release a new map just to be changing it? Like, I'd rather, again, this is one of those things that you hate to say and you would hate to see it come to reality. But at this point, they haven't really necessarily announced anything for a new map. And I would rather them delay the introduction of a map and maybe we just get specialists than have them release another crappy Battlefield 2042 map that's too open.
Yeah, I agree. I really want maps, but like...
I'm more excited about maps than specialists, honestly.
Yeah, same for me. I don't really... Because the specialist system just doesn't sit that well for anyone, I don't think. Even I'm okay with it, but I'm still not... I'm not that excited for new specialists, so... For me, it's the same. It's probably maps number 1 and then weapons, I think. And if we never get another specialist, I honestly don't care. But I'm the same. I think the first map they release has to be really good, because if it's not, I think we're all going to be that'll put a bit of worry into the community that, oh, not again. They've done another map that's just not good. That means the next one's probably not going to be good. And that's like a big issue, because to me, the map design in any shooter is the most important aspect. Most of the games that I don't like, it's because the maps aren't good. So, yeah, I really think I would not care if we don't get a map in Season 1. If they take their time with that exposure map or whatever they're working on, take your time with it, get it right. And then, yeah, hopefully that sort of trickles down to the next maps as well. I hope that they take their time with those ones. And if we end up getting 4 maps, I'd honestly rather get 3 maps and them just take their time on all of them.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the current design, I guess, concepts just haven't panned out. They're just not they're not Battlefield maps.
Exactly. Yeah, they're... I hate to say it because I know a lot of people worked on them, but they are barely better than the gray box that they designed them in. Like, that flat open area offers... Like, if you had, 4 coverage areas on a flat open plane... That's kind of replicating the feel of Battlefield map. Obviously, that's hyperbole, but it feels that way, where it's just so open. It feels flat, even though you're climbing up a hill. It still feels like flat around you. It doesn't give that immersive feel that you're in this varying location. Yeah,
and there's really no I guess, pattern to the map in terms of a lot of maps just have clear paths of where there's going to be action. There's a lot of... I've been playing this for 6 months and I still find myself going where do I need to be? I don't know where everyone's fighting. There's no clear areas that are, maybe in Breakthrough, because that's a bit different, but in Conquest I just find myself going I don't know where I need to be. I can't find anyone, and then I go over here and there's just no... I think that looks like a spot where people should be fighting, and it's just not, because no one knows where to go. So I really just hope that that's, I think the maps all look amazing. I think that's something they've nailed, but it's just about the actual layout that is the issue.
And this update makes them more playable than they've ever been. Like, I was actually surprised with how much enjoyment I was getting out of like the game. Where usually when I open up Battlefield 2042, it's like, here we go, and then I get into it, and it feels that way. It feels like I'm fighting the controls. It feels like I'm fighting the game itself to get what I want out of it. And this time I was actually like pleasantly surprised with how well everything flowed in terms of like the controls, the feel of things, even with the rubber banding that I was facing. Like, even with that, I think I was up to 260 ping, which was ungodly. I don't know where the servers were, but like I got into them instantly. That
sounds like Aussie servers to me, to be honest.
Yeah,
because for me, American servers, I know from Battlefront 2, they were 260, I think, on the Virginia servers. So it honestly could have been. You must have somehow got into an Aussie server.
I guess so, but it was like instantaneous. I was like, I shouldn't been able to matchmake into this instantly. Like, in terms of the priority list, Australia should be like really low in terms
Almost
of
last.
middle of the country of the US. It should be like towards the bottom, Australia, and then Japan as the last option.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the game? You've put in some time to play it. You've gone through the notes and the changes that they've made. What are your thoughts on how well they executed this update?
The first thing that comes to mind is I'm surprised, to be honest. I really, like, I don't want to say I was expecting it to be bad, but I was just very skeptical because it's such a big, like, 400 changes. That's a huge update. And I was a bit like, oh, geez, this is going to fix 400 things and break 200.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with how the update went. I would still say the game is just still not in the state that it should be, but this update, I'm like really, really happy with it. A lot of the changes they made are actually the things that I've mostly been frustrated with. I think the HUD changes are really, really good. That's something that I remember talking about that in my beta review, that there was just too much on my screen and you couldn't change the transparency or anything. It was just like so much going on.
Yeah.
And now, like, I noticed in the first game, it was the first thing I changed. I joined the game, just pressed start and just changed all of my HUD stuff.
Yep. That's exactly the same thing for me, bro.
And it just felt clean. I just felt like there wasn't information overload, and I just felt like I could see what I was doing. So that's a huge change for me. And also, I only just changed yesterday the actual scale of the HUD, so now that everything's a bit smaller too. So it's really promising that they've done that. Because I think the HUD design looks nice, but it was just too much. And now I think the HUD is honestly as good as it needs to be. I don't think they really need to do anything to the HUD now. So very happy with that. I'm very happy with the attachment changes too, because the guns do feel different now. I've actually been just toying around with different attachments, and you can actually feel like, oh damn, that grip makes it feel so much different than the last one. So those changes are really good as well. And then just, like I said, just the stability. It just feels, I don't get like dumb animations where you start sprinting and your left hand like goes all trippy. Like, it just feels a bit cleaner. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with the update overall. Like I said, there's still a long way to go, but I've kind of just moved on from that mentality of like I'm not living in November 2021 anymore. We're in April. It's launched the way that it has, and I'm not going to get hung up on it not being there, because that's just, I'm not living 6 months ago, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm past that now, and we can only hope that it improves, and this has improved it. So for me, this is a big win. And yeah, I just hope that, I think May just is really, really important that they just make sure that update just doubles down on this one. It doesn't need to be another 400. If they just fix like 50 to 100 things that are just small stuff and just don't break anything, then I'll still be happy with that. And I think we'll all be getting a bit excited by the fact that, you know, April was big and it worked. May hopefully is, you know, decent and it works. And then we all know that season 1 is just around the corner. And I think that's a really exciting thought. So
yeah,
good step in the right direction.
I think for May, what May really needs is another solid update, like you're saying, but we also need to know when the season's arriving. They cannot wait until the last second to announce the arrival of the season. They do not have the luxury of a fan base that is willing to return if they do not announce it beforehand.
Yeah, I'll take it back, actually. What I will say is this has gone really well. Now what they need to do from May onwards is pick up the communication, because they have done well with the feedback loop stuff. That's all really good. I like that they've got these 2 big blog posts a month, that there's like one that they show off what they're working on, then we talk to them, then they come back and show it. I think that's really good. There needs to be more communication on what they're fixing in this update, because like in the April update, we didn't know what we were getting until a couple of days before it, or even, to be honest, for me, it was the same day we got the patch notes and then the update went up that day. So we should be knowing about that in, early April. We should say, here's the key things that, we're trying to work on. They don't have to do the whole patch notes, but just like tell us what's on the way. Because right now they're saying that May is going to be another, decent update, but we just don't know what's in it. Like, are we getting server browser? Are we getting this? Are we getting that? That's the type of communication that I think they are going to have to pick up on. And yeah, it's heading into season 1. Like you said, we can't go in dark. We have to know it's dropping on this day. It has to be like a relaunch. They have to say like a month in advance, this is the day we're dropping it, and they have to be certain on that. No more delays. That will be suicide if they do that. They have to just give us not a complete roadmap, but just give us something, because
we're going to get X amount of things, whether that be weapons, a map, specialists, whatever. They need to tell us what it is. They need to announce when it's going to be, and they need to give us that information much earlier than they have ever done it in the past, because it is vital that this update does well. And because, like you said, this should be the relaunch. They should have a trailer that announces the changes. They should have all of these things. It should not be treated as another bug patch update.
No, it can't be like, oh, by the way, next week season 1 starts. That's just not acceptable, because no one else does that. Look at every other game out there. We know months in advance when season 1 or 2 is starting, and the other thing that I think they really need to get ahead early is to just set expectations. If we're only getting 2 weapons and 1 specialist, right? I'm okay with that. I don't expect freaking 3 maps and 10 specialists. But people need to know that, because I think people will be going in, and especially with this update going well, I think people will start, unfortunately, getting their expectations too high again. They need to set that tone like a month before, so that we can kind of be annoyed before it happens, if that makes sense. So I think people need like a month to accept that we probably won't get 10 weapons. I think we'll get 2 weapons and a specialist, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be that big. And then we'll obviously get like the battle pass, there'll be skins and stuff, but I'm not expecting like a crazy content drop. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are going to expect like 2 maps or something. So they need to get that out of the way, so that by the time the actual season drops, we aren't mad that we're not getting much. We go, okay, we're not getting much, but then, a month later, you actually play it and you go, oh, this is all decent. So yeah, that's the thing that communication is key for, is just setting the expectations, because that's something they've really failed on. Is like, all the trailers and stuff, it set our expectations so high, and then the game just didn't deliver. So yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing between now and season 1. It's arguably more important than season 1, in my opinion.
Yes. I think that is a fantastic point to bring up, is they need to set those expectations, because they have been horrible at doing that so far. Every update, they're like, this is the best update ever. And then it's another bug update. Like, they did well with this one because it actually lived up to the amount of changes that they were promising. But up until this point, they have not really delivered on that promise of this is a big update. Even when, I mean, the last one that we had before this was like, this is a huge update. Everything's going to, yeah, and it was teeny tiny, but they were all like, this is going to really change the game. And no, not really. They need to switch that, and it is incredibly important that we know how much is going to be in there beforehand. Like you said, get pre-mad about it, because honestly, I don't think this first season, as much as I want it to be huge, I want them to launch with a bang, which is what the game needs. They're not going to do it. Like, honestly, I don't think they will.
No, I just think there's not enough time that they can, with all the fixes they've been doing. It would have had time if the game launched really well. Then I think, obviously, like, we'd already be in season 1. But I mean, we'd probably be in season 2 at this point, to be honest. But yeah, I just think that because they're doing so much work on, say, the current maps, and it looks like they're potentially going to rework the specialist the way that they're saying, like, that's the next feedback loop. So there's going to be something they wouldn't talk about. If
and that wouldn't be in the next update or the season 1 update.
Yeah, so I think that season 1 will hopefully be like good enough that we're all like, okay, that was fine, and then hopefully I feel like season 2 will be, if the game is ever going to turn around, I think that is going to be the one that actually, you know, maybe has multiple maps and multiple specialists and stuff. But I just think, look at this update. They kind of undersold this update, in my opinion. They did say it was going to be huge, but they didn't. I feel like they didn't actually gas it up compared to their old ones on how good it was going to be. And now, because people weren't expecting it to be this good, look at the community reaction. Everyone's so happy with this. And they need to look at that and go, okay, like, let's not oversell the May update. Let's just say, yep, this is going to have this, this, and this. And then it turns out, oh, this one's got another 100 fixes as well. And we're getting some, like, traction with our happiness, I guess. So, yeah, I think they just need to learn to undersell, because if it goes wrong, they didn't gas it up too much. And if it goes right, they get more praise for that. And it's just a win-win.
It's free goodwill.
Yeah, literally.
Undersell, over deliver.
Yep. I think that's how every company should work, to be honest. It's just you see it happen so much, and when that happens, those are everyone's favorites. Like, that's always, if someone gasses something up too much, it will never live up to that. If they just kind of go, yeah, this is going to be pretty good, and then it turns out to be really good, then people are always like, people will do the gassing up for them. They don't have to do it themselves.
Everyone's going to be raving about it.
Yeah.
One last thing for this episode. What do you think about the news? I'm going to use that in quotation marks here. News about almost all of the team are still working on Battlefield. I think it's a bold-faced lie because of just how big DICE is. There's no way the entire team is going to work there. They have to. There's not enough work, and they've said it previously from other developers that there's not enough work for them to work on Battlefield 2042. But what are your thoughts on it?
So, as of 2 days ago, I was in the same boat. I was like, there's not a chance. They've already definitely moved on to the next Battlefield, which is not something that's just a normal thing.
Yeah, that's how game development works.
Yeah. They did the same with Battlefield 5. That launched bad, and they had already started working on 2042. That's just how it always works. After seeing how big this update is, I don't want to say I definitely believe it, but it's more believable. I think that
I think there's a higher number, but I don't think it's the entire team.
Nah. Oh, that's the hard thing to gauge, I guess, because he said, well, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something like almost everyone. I'd imagine, like, you know, the people in charge of, like, conceptualizing the next game have probably moved on. But I think in terms of, like, developers, I think a lot of them probably still are on this game, because they're probably not at that stage in the next game anyway that they can really start actually developing things. And I just think hopefully this is the wake-up call that they need, that they've all gone, okay, we kind of messed up, let's just stick with this one for a bit and fix it. They'll obviously release a new one anyway, but take an extra year to get this right and then move on, and hopefully that's what they're thinking. So I'm still skeptical, but with how big this update was and how stable it was, I kind of believe it more than I did, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think a larger number than DICE is usually used to working on a game that has already launched is on the team for Battlefield 2042. I don't think it's the number that everyone thinks, but it is more than has been historically there for other games. I mean, even Battlefront 2, even with all that controversy, there was still quite a small number of team members that were on that game, but it seems like there are more people actively working on this than other DICE games after launch.
Yeah, and it's also hard to tell because he could have meant the fact that Ripple Effect is still working on it too. Like, it's hard to tell. He could have just meant like most of the development teams that worked on it are still working on it or something. So yeah, it's hard to tell. But I think if we get a few more big updates in a row, like if May isn't just tiny, and then Season 1 is in June, for example, then I'll probably be thinking, okay, maybe they actually do have everyone on, because with them balancing all the map changes and just fixing the game and stuff, if they can do that, and actually if we do get some semi-decent content in June, then I'll probably be thinking, okay, maybe they actually do.
I want to believe it,
still working on it,
but I can't yet.
Yeah, this game has taught me. That's why I'm kind of saying I'm still pretty skeptical, because I'm just trying not to. I've been burned by that too many times to fall into the trap. So I'll believe it when I see it. If we get Season 1 and 2 are just absolutely huge, then I'll probably go, okay, they have done that. But until I see it, I'm still going to be skeptical. It's more believable now, but I'm still probably 50-50 on it. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. I feel like even when games in the past have launched bad, they still move on. That's just not that's something that is completely normal. I saw a lot of people complaining about that when it first came out, that they're moving on to the next one. People were like, "Oh, they're already dropping this game." No, that's just literally how every single multiplayer game works. They launch it, they probably spend a month on it, and then they're on to the next one. That's literally how they go.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's just the standard. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
If they didn't do that, games would take even longer than they already do for those studios that release regular consistent games.
Yeah, and especially with Battlefield, because like say with Call of Duty, you could maybe accept that because there's 3 teams on it, whereas with this one, like they require the same company to do it, so they obviously have to move on immediately, because otherwise then the launch day gets pushed back. With Call of Duty, you could maybe afford that, because there's so many teams, but I don't know why people were so shocked by that. But it also just shows there's a lot of people out there that just they think they know everything about gaming, and they really don't. I think that's like pretty common knowledge that every company moves on straight away, and apparently not a lot of people knew that.
I think that too is like, it's, again, we've talked about this in the past. We need more of that education aspect of how games are made from specific companies. You can't complain about everyone not understanding how your game is working and not giving you good feedback if they don't know. Because it seems like every single game development company does things slightly or drastically different from other ones. Like, you may know how this studio works front to back. You can't necessarily draw the same conclusions to another company. Yeah,
exactly. I really wish that like all of these dev companies had more of like a media team that they were doing. Like, I would love to get like a monthly little 10-minute video of what goes on at DICE, and like with every company out there. I think it would just be so good. I've seen a lot of sports teams do that, because that was the same thing with sport. You just watch them play on the weekend, and that's all you know about them. And then in the last 10 years, it's now become more of like all the teams I follow, they have a media team that every week they interview players, they show behind the scenes on the team selection. They just show that stuff, and it's really interesting, and it gives you an idea of like, oh, that's how they do that. I never really thought about it. And so I think with gaming, it would be awesome to see that as well. And hopefully that ends up, we've seen some, there's been like the documentaries. I remember Respawn had the documentary about making Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is just so good, and I don't know why more companies don't do that, because people eat that up. It's so interesting, I reckon.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see a documentary taken from ideation to launch, and I think that'd be incredibly impactful and educational.
Yeah, 100%. I think it would open a lot of people's eyes and maybe make people a bit more forgiving as well, because I think we all just don't understand how hard it actually is, and it would just, when we get this like combativeness between a dev company and its community like we've had with this game, it might just ease that a little bit. It's there's always going to be some dickheads out there, but I think if everyone knew, okay, this is why, COVID hit it really hard and it's the biggest game they've ever done, blah blah blah, people become a little bit more forgiving. And then on the other side, it also gives us a better idea of like, if they are underperforming, you know what I mean? If we know how it works and then the game isn't living up to it, but we all know roughly how it works, we can kind of gauge better, that it's not just hard, that they're not doing what they should be. So I think I think it would be awesome to see. Whether it ever goes that way, I'm not sure, but would love to see that.
I hope one day we do actually get to watch something like that, and I hope we get more education pieces on how DICE works instead of just bits and pieces, and then the developers being pretty sassy about it, like, oh, hey, I can't believe you don't know about this. It's like, but we've never heard anything about this, and you're the only development company that does that way. So, but
exactly.
I think this is a good step. I think they're in the right direction of things, and I hope the next update comes with an announcement for the next season, when that is, what it's going to bring, and at the very minimum, doesn't introduce more bugs.
Yeah. I think that's the key moving forward now, is that we are in the right direction and we cannot deviate from that direction anymore. Because if we go even sideways, if there's an update, like if May is just, remember the March update, it was just so small that everyone was like, is that even worth downloading? Like it's not even it's not even changing anything. Even that, if May update is just like 10 fixes that are tiny, even that's not good enough. I think they just have to continue to go forward, even if it's just a little bit. That, progress is progress. That's all we can ask for. But if we go sideways, or especially backwards, that's I just don't think they can afford that. They've kind of, I wouldn't say they've gained our trust back, but they've made a step towards gaining our trust back.
Yeah.
And any steps backwards is just that could be the end of the game. I think that there's such a drastic shift where we are headed in the right direction now, and the game does still have the potential to do like a Battlefront 2 where it could end up really good, but every mistake that they make from here on out is kind of magnified by 10. Like it's a little mistake is now a huge mistake. So I really hope that they kind of know that internally, and hopefully we don't see any mistakes.
I hope not. But I think for this episode, we're all good here. We have some good news to talk about, which is always great on the podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. And if you did enjoy, leave us a review or rate us on Spotify. It helps a ton. It gets other people to know our show as well, and ranks us higher when people search Battlefield podcasts. So definitely appreciate that. As always, we'd like to thank Ethan Clark for the thumbnail, and we'll see you on the battlefield.